What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We've got a new episode of Up in the Blue Seats on deck. We are down to the last 7 games of the regular season, if you can believe it, beginning Saturday against the Devils in Newark. But let's recap first. While Larry was holding down the fort very generously in California, the Rangers lost 3-1 to the Kings, 5-4 in overtime to the Ducks, and beat the Sharks 6-1. Then they beat Minnesota 5-4 in overtime Wednesday night at the Garden on Vincent Trocheck's game winner, which was more like Artemi Panarin using Trocheck's stick as a backboard, but a win nonetheless. And that leaves the Rangers in a points tie with the Canadiens for the second wildcard spot, but Montreal has a game in hand before they face the Bruins Thursday night. So, let's start with the latest. I feel like Wednesday's game, it was just riddled with self-inflicted mistakes. Obviously, a win is a win. 2 points, big 2 points. But, we had the flubbed clearing attempt from Trocheck early. Another instance on the power play when he held onto it for so long and he was pressured into a neutral zone turnover. Keandre Miller with a backhanding the puck into the middle of the zone for anybody to take. And it was tough, but I feel like they competed. And Minnesota also had their fair share of pretty blatant mistakes as well. So that certainly helped. But Brian, we've heard the phrase shooting ourselves in the foot from this team a few times this season. What's your analysis of these costly mistakes that have just hindered the Rangers pretty consistently this season?
There's a number of different ways you can look at it, right? You can look at it like, okay, the next day open up the newspaper and say we're tied with the Canadiens. Well, the Canadiens just thumped the Florida Panthers again for the 4th time, right? So if you're a Habs fan, everybody thinks, this is their year. And if you're a Rangers fan, it's just been one mistake after another. But they won a game where they made these mistakes where I think earlier in the year that game is over. There's no pushback. So I'll give them credit there. They got 2 points. And, it's Minnesota team that they're not fighting anything, they're not fighting with for anything. So you can afford to give up the extra point. It's wild to me how it all kind of, it leaves you wanting more in a lot of ways because they can come back and do these things that get them 2 points. And Minnesota's still decimated a little bit. They're teetering as well. But it's still a competitive team you're playing against, and the fact that they came back and did it was really good. Now, I don't love the body of work in the last 4. Took care of business in San Jose. Took a game plan that they should take against top teams and bring to every other game in a going north direct way, as Peter Laviolette would say, direct. And Larry, you were there asking him those questions. I know that. But, the meltdown in Anaheim, the confusion, the effort was there, even in overtime. Like, everyone's trying. They're trying to make a play. But when 3 guys go out to the top of the slot to cover one in the 3-on-3 overtime, you get what you get. So, there's things there. I think the energy's a little higher. The intent is there now. Much better than what we saw when they were really in the dark days of this season. I still have some hope.
Even the energy was much better on the road last week than it had been at home the previous week when they were going through the stretch or, the Calgary game. They beat Vancouver even though they were outshot 39-12, right? So they actually did play a better brand of hockey. They collapsed in the 3rd period in Anaheim. And it might be a point that just comes back to bite them. They were so cavalier on the power play. Again, the power play is just dragging them down.
Yeah.
Essentially every game, right? They're up 2, then they go on an extended 5-on-3, didn't get the puck on the net. And then then there's a shorthanded goal. So anyway, but then they did take care of business against San Jose on Saturday night. And before the game last night against Minnesota, I was just chatting with Billy Guerin, And he asked me, what I thought. I said, I just don't know. I just don't know. And he said, they've got the Rangers. He said, they've got a lot of really good players. And I said, they haven't won 3 games in a row since the middle of November. And he said, what? I said, they haven't won 3 games in a row since the middle of November. And he said, what? And so we'll see. Saturday now they have the shot, right, to put together a 3-game winning streak for the first time since the middle of November. And look, I think their energy has been better. I think their energy was better at the Garden last night. There were unforgivable errors again, but they attacked. They looked like a team that was invested in the game, and they looked like a team that was invested in the outcome. But remember too that they have 4 games remaining against Florida, Tampa, and Carolina. Yep. 2 against Tampa, right? They're 0-6 on the season against those 3 teams. So they've got a lot of work to do here. It's not only that they have to have an investment, which is a prerequisite for doing your job, right? But they have to be good. They have to clean up these mistakes that have been occurring, honestly, since game one. Remember the opener, we're talking, if not for Shesterkin, it could have been different, right? The first 10 minutes of the game in Pittsburgh. So it's been a season-long narrative. They just commit egregious mistakes. It's hard for me to understand. Brian, I would imagine it's hard for you to understand. And game 75 of a season. I don't know.
And it does feel like K'Andre Miller has been at the heart of a lot of those egregious mistakes across this entire season. And Larry you and I were talking in the press box last night about his future. Obviously, he needs a new contract at the end of the season. Where do you see that going after watching him this season, and just what's been your evaluation in general?
Well, listen, if it weren't a contract year, then I'd say, again, we've K'Andre's come up all year, and I think both of us, Brian and I, have both been in the, both shared the opinion, you're not trading this guy. This guy is just too much. There's too much in his game. There's too much. The ceiling is too high. But now you're coming up, honestly, a season where I think he's regressed a little bit. I think he's regressed kind of from last year, but I think he's regressed really from 2 years ago, where his best year was the second year under Gallant. That was his best year. And then I thought last year he struggled a little bit, and this year he hasn't quite gotten traction. The issue is the negotiation. Right? If this wasn't a contract year, again, it would be easy. What's the contract? What is K'Andre and his side looking for? They're looking for 6 years at 6.5. Are they looking for 7 at 7? It's tough. I mean, it's tough. And where I also have an issue with is evaluating him. He's played under so many different coaches already, and in each situation, everyone regressed the second year. Everyone has regressed this year. So it's not K'Andre alone, but they're going to have to make a commitment to him for at least 5 years. I can't imagine the agent is going to settle for fewer than 5, probably 6 or 7. I'm not sure. It depends on the number. It depends on what's available. You certainly, this being said, they would have to find a replacement, a top 4 replacement.
Yeah.
So, is the template, can you find a trade where you're looking for a defenseman in that same age range, plays the left side, but maybe is a little bit different. Maybe doesn't have quite the ceiling, but maybe maybe he's been more grounded as in his defensive work. He's not somebody I'm trading for a first rounder. He's not somebody I'm trading to trade. If I'm trading DeAndre Miller, it's because of the commitment and because I need someone who I can rely on to be a defender if you're playing in the top four.
Yeah, I guess we'll see where that one goes.
I worry about like you said, the volatility in his game. He's getting close to 400 games, and I don't think you walk him into free agency just to punt it down the road. But in cases like this, where everyone regressed, like you said, Larry, maybe you do punt it down the road a year. I don't know. It's hard to give years and term and a lot of dollars.
Too, because he didn't start. He was a forward growing up, and he didn't start playing D until I think he was 16, right?
Yep.
And so there's always been this undercurrent. Well, he should go back to playing. They should
try him a forward.
Play him a forward.
Because he played forward as a sophomore in high school. What?
Yes, exactly. But it's like you're not signing Kreider Miller, who's 6 years.
Can you imagine?
$6 million deal. Let's say, go play forward.
And try it out, try it back out,
Oh my goodness. Well, that's the other thing though. He does play the same position. You do have different coaches, but you play the same position, and you have to reflect and look internally as to what are my strengths? Like, what are my non-negotiables that I have to bring every night if I'm not making a grade A home run pass or I'm not involved in the offense. Like, the first thing we all learned coming up, it was a different era, I get it, but like, you'll play if the guy behind everybody trusts you. So if you get trust, then you get time, and then you get more opportunities, and you better be ready. So it's not, I don't know. After that pass, he was, he's right back out there. That's fine, but it's at a certain point, and it's not to embarrass the guy, but just sit here for a second and collect your thoughts. We're going to need you. They absolutely need him. He is a unicorn in how he's built and how he moves. Everything should be on the table for this guy in the offseason too. Changing your curve, your pattern, your stiffness, different things, different ways of training. Just change it up a little bit because everybody wants him to be who they think he can be. I think the guy's ceiling is very high. So he just doesn't look like he's having any fun.
Yeah.
I know it's a tough season, but that is so hard to be effective at all if you're not having any fun.
Yeah, no, that's a good observation, and I can definitely confirm that, and Larry probably too, from people who watch him every day. On a more positive note, we got another new face in the Rangers lineup. Gabe Perreault, the Rangers' 23rd overall pick in 2023, made his NHL debut Wednesday night. And Rangers head coach Peter Laviolette put him right onto the second line with Alexis Lafreniere and JT Miller, and right onto the second power play unit too. I mean, Larry, how encouraging was it to see Laviolette entrust this 19-year-old right away, and what were your early impressions of him as a player?
That was interesting. It was interesting. I thought Laviolette's play calling last night was interesting. Also, it was interesting that he dropped Kreider to the fourth line, and so he could use Brzezinski on the third line with Zibanejad and Cooley. So I thought the coach approached the game a little bit differently than he has almost all season. I thought he was involved. He on his second shift, he nearly made it.
Oh yeah.
A pass that caught Lafreniere by surprise, right? And
had no idea it was coming.
Right, he had no idea. No, but he was involved. He wasn't out for every defensive zone draw. He was replaced on the defensive zone draws, but he jumped right in. He was on the ice in the last minute of regulation in the tie game. So I thought I thought he brought a bit of a spark. And I thought, and I thought that the coach used him properly. I thought he used them appropriately. I didn't love that Othman only got on like once in the last 10 and a half minutes of the game. I mean, but I'm not sure. Maybe because there are a couple of power plays, he didn't get on. But I kind of liked the ice distribution last night more than I usually do. So, that was a plus.
Another BC Eagle, Brian.
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of him. I'm bummed out about the BC Eagles.
Aw, sorry.
No, the bigger games, it's just like, yeah, I mean,
we should have given our condolences to you.
You have to play a different way. And those guys are just so supremely talented. And you saw Ryan Leonard played in Washington threw a big hit. He's a pretty fearless guy. And I always root for BC guys. And, Pro's second generation. He'll have a little bit of a leg up on certain things in terms of the lifestyle and what goes on. So that's great. Great. I urge the fans to be patient with this young man. Still a teenager. His hockey sense is very, very high.
Yeah.
He can create, and what he can see through just the chaos I was very, very impressed with. Anticipation-wise and his skill, like, of reading plays and where they're going to be is very high. Foot speed, he's not like a burner. So those things, when the level increases, you have to understand that it's going to take his brain a little bit to start figuring out the pace of what he's seeing. He can run on adrenaline right now. Hopefully he does and gives the team a spark. But yeah, I'm excited for the kid and for the Rangers because that's stuff that is really, really, really hard to teach. And I've been trying to teach it to a number of kids, and they're picking up on it. But it's really hard, and it has to come from the kid trying to get better. And he's, from everything I've heard, is one of those kids. So it's exciting for him. Congratulations to him because now he can say he's a National Hockey League player.
Right.
Yeah.
I know there's been a lot of talk about, among fans leading up to the signing and then right after the signing about, the Rangers always rush their prospects. They should start them in Hartford. Well, listen, this is this is a unique scenario right now. This does not mean that Gabe Perreault has a spot on next year's opening night roster. Right. There's a whole training camp. There's a whole process. This is what you do for a first rounder who's coming out of college, who's a marquee guy, and maybe can make an impact. You don't worry about that, that the second contract's coming a year early and the ARB is coming a year early. And then, finally, the 7 years is coming a year early to unrestricted. You're taking care of the player. You're taking care of his needs. You're getting him into the lineup because you need something else too. If he, what's it worth if one of his contributions lands the Rangers into, gets the Rangers a playoff game? So,
nothing to lose, everything to gain.
Honestly, you sign the contract, you worry about all the other stuff at another day. And again, it's not a guarantee that he's on that they're rushing him into the lineup next season. Remember, after Kreider had his playoff, the next year was the lockout. And so he was playing in Hartford while the NHL was shut down. And then he actually made the opening night roster. He played the first game and then he went, then he spent like nearly all season in the American League. And people kind of think it was because of Tortorella, but it really wasn't. Because the next season, when Vigneault was the coach, he had come in. Chris didn't make the team at a training camp in 2013-14. It was Vigneault's first year. He was like among the last cuts. With the team had that West Coast exhibition swing. Played in Vancouver. Played in
yeah, that was fun.
Brian's actually like PTSD.
Played in Vegas. It was
Calgary.
No, so I remember Kreider like playing in the exhibition games, and people kind of thought, well, of course it's Chris Kreider, and he didn't make the team, and so here was Chris Kreider, who was bigger and ready, and it had a playoff resume, and he was guaranteed nothing. So I just would put that aside when we're talking about Gabe Perreault.
And I mean, Washington just did the same thing with Ryan Leonard.
Yeah.
They're in first place. They look very good.
Yeah,
It's just you want to get them in. You want to get your hands on them. And hey, look at this run we're going on. Look at how these guys treat themselves now. And then, if in September you're not ready, it's like, all right, you can bring the hammer on them and say, you weren't ready. You knew we showed you this.
yeah.
Or if they are ready, it's like because they saw this what to expect. You have that whole summer to train and what to expect. Because as a player, hey, I got to do this. That wasn't working. I got to fix that. Whatever it is, more information is not bad for the team and for the player.
Brian, Larry equated this as a full circle moment for Chris Kreider, who joined the Rangers while you were there, and now he's got Perreault coming in. Just how fun was it to get a kid from your alma mater, and what do you remember about Kreider when he first came up?
Well, he had some quirks.
He still does.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone knows I love Chris Kreider, but the amount of heat that I took for Chris's quirks, like this guy was my little brother at times, and I'm like, this, I've seen him like 4 times in person. We played against each other in like a summer league.
Yeah.
I don't know the man, but no, and I welcomed him.
You had to claim him.
Yeah, and I was happy to. But he was, he ties his skates standing up. All these people are like, "What is going on with your boy here?" And I'm like, he needs an advocate, right? So no, he was. I'm just like, leave him alone because he's got, he's scoring these big goals in the playoffs. We'll talk to him this summer, and it was fun though, just because, he went through 3 years at BC. I never played with him, obviously. My time at BC and how I operated was a lot different than how he did, but there were people from BC asking me. It was just cool to be connected again with it, and he performed in the playoffs, which was the coolest part because that's not easy to do in the best of circumstances.
Yeah, I always
and as I mentioned the other day, and I mentioned to him the other day too, I remember you skating laps with him, and you were trying to show him how to block shots. For torts. And I remember him saying, "Oh, well, we never did that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that." And he still doesn't.
I can't even imagine how crazy it must be to make that jump from college life to NHL life. I think about when Cale Makar did it when I was a senior in college. Sometimes the stories just write themselves. I mean, him flying out to Calgary to play his hometown team in the playoffs with the Avs, first shift, first shot, goal, Mollie, tears. But I remember looking at my roommates and being like, this kid was eating in a dining hall last week. And now he's on an NHL charter, and it's always so much fun to cover. You
got to picture yourself there. You have to imagine that's what you're going to do, and you get there, and so you step into a room. It's kind of like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. When you get on the ice, you can't be like, I don't want to do the wrong thing. You got to look across and be like, I'm better than these guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a level of ego and swagger, I guess, but all while maintaining, humble rookie status. That's the hardest part. But when you step on the ice, the puck drops. It's like, that's my puck. You can't have that puck. And you win or you lose.
It's interesting. It's probably cathartic for him too, right? Because like the upset, the loss, the pain from the loss kind of just, it's like it never happened right now. Probably over the summer at some point, but right now it's like he's just in this new thing. It's like,
right.
What upset?
Good distraction, but I will say it comes back.
Yeah.
It never goes
Well,
away.
I remember you talking about how hard it was because you chose to go back for your senior year to win, and you didn't. And I remember you talking about how painful it was.
Yeah, it was my fault, pretty much. I had a turnover and then lost coverage. It was just chaos in our end, and we give up the winning goal with 18 seconds left. A game that we dominated, but it comes on my feed now. I don't know what this stupid thing does.
It's taunting you.
It is, just recently. It's devastating. It happened in 2007.
And that's on the algorithm, guys. It's gonna get you. It will
Bunch of
always
jerks.
get you. So funny, Brian. Well, going back to last game, I mean, Artemi Panarin was just an absolute beast.
Yeah.
3-point effort, game high 7 shots on goal. I mean, if you haven't read Larry's column, I very much so suggest that you do. It's filled with so many wild stats about Artemi. I mean, he's about to finish his 6th straight season leading the Rangers in points, which is every single season he's been in New York. He's collected 543 of them during his time in New York, and that's 123 more points than the next highest producer in Mika Zibanejad at 420. And he's also 4th in the NHL over that span in points, behind only Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Nathan McKinnon. So, I mean, the stats just speak for themselves. But Brian, I don't know if we've ever asked you about facing Artemi Panarin as an opponent. Like, how do you game plan for a guy like that in the opposing locker room? And what was he like to compete against?
Yeah, so especially when he's on his game, he just takes what you give him. He creates it on his own too a lot. He has a way, and Adam Fox when he was at his best too, but of leaning into the middle of the ice and then almost like backing off, almost like I don't know, like in basketball when a guy kind of pulls back and hits a shot. Like I never saw a guy go backwards like laterally. And then, a couple stick handles, if the pass isn't there, he'd attack a seam and be like, how do we just give up? Why didn't anyone close on him? And you're just like, I thought he was going to get rid of it. Like he didn't get rid of it. Last year, he started shooting more. I thought last night he was moving. He's so deceptive and can create space with just like head fakes and shoulder movements like Fox can when he's on his game at his peak. But then he skates a little different than everyone else, but he has speed.
Oh, yeah.
And he can wire it, and he doesn't get it blocked that often. I mean, save for that 5-on-3 where they had no shots.
He was blocked 4 times.
I know. But he gets it through traffic a lot. I'm saying when he's on his game. And the fact that he's doing it this year, like last year, I was like, this guy's got to get some Hart Trophy votes because of just how well he was producing. This year it's like it's just like cover that guy, he should be okay. And so every night you go in, it's like, all right, like let's eliminate Panarin, and he's able to produce still. So it's it's everything about him. It's just he's strong but he's not big. His skates look like they're about to fall off. He came from nothing, and look what he's made himself. It's and he does look like he's having fun when he's on the ice.
Always.
The infection.
Always. He's always having fun, no matter what.
He's an imperfect, he's an imperfect elite player. Wish he was, a little more diligent without the puck. Wish he, were more of a straight line guy in the playoffs. But there are players with great regular season resumes who don't do anything in the playoffs either. And I don't. It's a little bit harsh because I thought our Temi's playoffs have been a little bit better than he's been given credit for. But you have to get to the playoffs. You have to have players who are going to win games for you by scoring goals in January and February and November and March. And again, like the only 3 players in the league over the last 6 years who have greater numbers than Panarin Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Nathan McKinnon. That's it. He's been a Hart finalist twice. Panarin is. He can win games, and he does win games almost by himself on nights when they're not playing well. So, and again, he has 1 year to go on his contract.
Right.
He is, I think, inarguably the greatest big money free agent signing in franchise history. I mean, he's making he's the highest paid player in franchise history, and he's doing this. But now this summer, the window of they can talk to him about an extension, and if I'm the Rangers, I'm trying to lock him up. Again, is Panarin going to be unreasonable and then you walk away? But I don't think so. I think he loves playing here. But that's one I think that the Rangers are going to need to get done, because you don't want your leading scorer for 6 straight years to walk out the door.
Well, it brings people in the building too.
Yeah. Oh, he is must see.
Yeah. I just would love him to change a little harder, because that they don't get off the ice fast enough.
He is what we call in basketball a basket hanger. He is the ultimate basket hanger in hockey. I think every night I'm like, oh, there's Artemi basket hanging at the halfway line, waiting to go the other way. But you know what? It's kind of like he produces. He produces more than any other player in that room. That's always been his thing.
Those guys have the ability to read, and they get those chances. Like Kucherov does that really well too. He's got a little more snarl to his game. And by the way, he'd be on that list if he didn't miss a whole year. But
yeah,
they the odd time it can frustrate you. Like nine of the previous 10 games, they've made a contribution that's given you a chance to win. So it can be frustrating because it's just so easily fixable. But it's like, they're kind of going rogue. That's how they get their rhythm in the game. So.
All righty. Well, that sounds like a good place for us to stop. Thank you all for listening. As always, give us a thumbs up down below and leave us some comments about how you think the Rangers' chances to make the playoffs are looking at this moment in time. And we'll catch you again next week.